I'll introduce them. I dealt with them reasonably during Gilgal 2020. In fact, let me share this testimony to the glory of God. I was invited to a ministers' conference, and I had a session in the conference, a number of days. And I went there, and there were ministers that came from neighboring states of Plateau, neighboring states around us here, and ministers that came from outside the country. About 2 or 3 countries were represented apart from Nigeria, making it 4 countries. So I went with, I think it was Kim that I went to the meeting with, Barrister Kim. He was still in school then. Afe, Babalola University. So I gave, a man of God came in, a bishop from outside the country, and was a resource person in the program too. And they had been talking for a couple of days before I came in, 1 or 2 days before my own turn. So I came to the meeting, and when they called me up, I decided to chip in certain things I had dealt with here for a number of years. And I brought them up. These are the things we'll be looking at again briefly, because in the matter of corporate wealth, Becky, for JETS 2040, you will hear me on these issues over and over again. So make up your minds that you won't be tired, because we can never overemphasize them. They are so key to whatever we will see as the excellence of our corporate life in JETS 2040. Yaks. Are you following what I'm saying here? Amen. So very. Now listen to this. I shared a little bit about that, just touching quickly because of our time. The next speaker that came after me came from outside the country. And he started talking about the talk I gave. And long story short, he stood publicly there and he said, I want to be your disciple, sir. He said, before I leave this country, I want as many of your materials, your books, your manuals, your tapes and CDs and whatever, I'll get out of this country with it. So it looked like well, one of those things, until the relationship between me and him developed. And then I knew that he meant it. He seriously meant it. Because after his talk, made references to whatever I said, because that dealt with the health of a church. If a church is healthy, that church will be wealthy. So we're dealing with all of those things. And when it was time for refreshments, we had to go for lunch, etc. He spent a while with me, and we got talking. He said, I need virtually everything. He said, forget about what you're hearing about. I want to start afresh, following you. I said, fine. So I had only one session, so I never went back there. And until the ministers' conference was over, they left the country. We didn't even get in touch. By the next year, he began a new program in his ministries and invited nations around there, about 3 or 4 nations, ministers, to come for the program. Annually, it was for executives of businesses and ministries, etc. Excellencies. So For obvious reasons, I couldn't join them that first year. I joined them the second year. So, when I had my sessions, my first few sessions in the place, addressing the brethren, and I was very mindful of the nations that were seated there and what they have to carry back to their countries. So, after one of the sessions, one of the key ministers in that ministry came to introduce his family. And then he's telling me this and that. So when he talked about his wife and all of that, then the wife told me something publicly there. She said, "Sir, majority of us here know you." I said, what do you mean by that? Said, she pointed at a place, a location within the big hall. She said, when our bishop returned from the program in Nigeria, he brought certain materials that had to do with him, including the teaching in the conference he attended in Nigeria. And all of us, that was why he brought us into the hall, because they needed a big place. He said, with our wives and husbands, we sat down and we will listen to you, and he will make explanations. So he went and started teaching his leadership. Talk to me now. From the brief few things we taught him in the conference in Nigeria. So he said something thereafter. He now personally told, okay, let me leave that one. Let me just remain with this one. So one other pastor that was there listening to us said, "Sir, what we saw and heard in person is more than what we saw and heard in the CDs and those other things." Said you exceeded by far our expectations. It's like usually when you listen to people, when they come, you see they fall a little bit below the rating. Say this one, you went far above it. Do you follow what I'm saying? No. That's why I'm telling you that we can never joke with it. The way we didn't joke with it in Gilgal 2020. So we can't overemphasize it, especially in the afternoon. That's the reason why, like we have said, even during the sharpshooters gathering, right? We said last year during sharpshooters gathering that your personal private plan within the corporate plan is very key. It's cardinal.